Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the smoky, flickering world of ancient Rome, but not as an emperor, not as a senator, and definitely not as some toga-draped poet sipping watered-down wine. No, tonight you're the new recruit in one of the most exhausting, underappreciated, and frankly dangerous jobs in the empire, an ancient Roman firefighter. You're walking through the streets just after sunset. The city hasn't gone quiet. Rome never truly sleeps. Oil lamps glow in windows, ox carts creak along cobbled lanes, and the air smells like fish guts, spilled wine, and something smoldering. Always something smoldering. You tighten your sandals and tug your cheap woolen cloak closer. It's not cold, exactly, just clammy. That sticky kind of Mediterranean night where your tunic clings to your back and every gust of wind smells like it might be coming from a bakery or a building that's about to be one. Because in Rome, everything burns eventually. The timber roofs, the straw insulation, the waxed canvas awnings. Oh, and let's not forget the oil. Olive oil isn't just for salads. It's in your lamps, your soap, and half the food you cook, meaning every home is practically a ready-made firework dot. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, I'd love to know where and when you're listening. Drop your city and local time in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You pass a taberna, the ancient Roman version of a dive bar. Inside, a man is drunkenly lecturing his drinking partner about how his cousin lost a shop in last week's fire. It's a common topic. In fact, you hear the word incendium more often than hello around here. Your shift hasn't started, but you're already on edge. You've got your gear slung over your shoulder, a curved hook for pulling down burning walls, a short axe, a dented water bucket, and a long pole tipped with a sponge soaked in vinegar. No, that's not for your hygiene. That's your fire-beating sponge. You'll learn to hate it. Suddenly, a shout in the distance. It cuts through the air like a blade. Ignis in Subura. Your heart skips. You break into a run. Subura is the worst-case scenario. It's a dense, poverty-stricken neighborhood with narrow streets, crammed wooden balconies, and more flammable materials per square meter than a fire-eater's tent. And now you're headed straight for a dot as you sprint. Your sandals slip on. Wet cobbles. Someone's dumped chamber pot contents into the street again. You skid, catch yourself, and keep going. The smoke hits you before you see the flames, a low, greasy stench that tells you it's not just someone burning trash. This is real, and you're not alone. You spot other vigils ahead, your fellow firefighters silhouetted in torchlight. They're hauling water from a public fountain, trying to form a bucket chain. You jump in line, passing heavy, sloshing buckets forward. It's like playing the worst game of hot potato with the added threat of death. A historian once joked that Roman firefighters were mostly good at two things: sweating and shouting. And you're doing both, loudly. Because yelling is part of the tactic. Yell loud enough, and people wake up, scatter, and maybe remember to bring a bucket. This isn't the first fire tonight. It's the third. Rome averages one serious fire every few days, but lately it's been worse. Some say it's the weather. Others say it's the gods. A few blame Nero, even though he's been dead for decades. But historians still argue whether the increase in fires during the late Empire was due to urban overcrowding or simply worse building codes. Frankly, you're too busy choking on smoke to care. The flames are licking up a second-story wall now, and you get your first real close-up. It's beautiful in the most horrifying way. Orange light dances across the brickwork, illuminating ivy and graffiti. Someone had painted a love poem here. You can't read it anymore. You grab your sponge stick and charge. Yes, you heard that right. You take the vinegar-sodden sponge and smack it against the base of the flames like you're swatting a misbehaving goat. It sizzles, it fails. You try again. Above, a window shatters. A woman is screaming from the top floor. She's got a baby in her arms and terror in her eyes. You motion wildly, telling her to stay. Help is coming. Hopefully. One of the older vigiles is trying to climb onto the roof next door. He's using an old ladder that looks like it was stolen from a painter. You think about joining him, but then glance down at the puddle of sewage you're standing in. Your sandal squelches. Nah, you'll wait your turn. Eventually the fire is contained. Not extinguished, let's not get ambitious, but contained. 3 buildings lost, 2 injured. 1 goat escaped and hasn't been seen since. You sit on the curb, sweat running down your temples, your tunic soaked through. Someone passes around a skin of sour wine. You take a sip and instantly regret it. It's warm, possibly cursed, but you drink it anyway, because that was just the first hour of your shift, and deep down, you know there'll be more. The bucket's still in your hand, fingers pruned and sore, when the next shout comes, this time from a narrow alley wedged between 2 insulae, those ancient Roman apartment blocks, known less for their charm and more for collapsing when you breathe on them wrong. You groan. It's not even midnight. Your team shuffles like a pack of sleepwalkers. Someone's missing a sandal. Another guy is bleeding from a forehead scrape, but insists it's just aesthetic. You're learning that in the vigils, pride is second, only to bad timing. You squeeze into the alley, and there it is again, that glow. Subtle, sinister. It starts behind a wooden shop front, maybe a candle merchant's stall, or perhaps a backroom bakery. Fire always knows how to pick the coziest places, and once again the chain begins. This time it's worse. The fountain is 2 streets away, and the ground between here and there is a cruel mosaic of mud, manure, and sharp pottery shards. The buckets don't pass smoothly. They stumble, they fall, they leak like political promises. You're stationed halfway down the line. One hand passes, the other receives, over and over. The rhythm is hypnotic, like the world's least enjoyable. Dance, your shoulders ache, your calves scream. Your neck keeps jerking as if it's trying to remind you you're not a machine. Still, you keep going. Historians still argue whether these ancient bucket chains were effective or just a theatrical display to reassure panicked crowds. You're inclined to believe the latter, especially when your bucket reaches you already half empty. Someone ahead must have tripped. Again, suddenly the guy 2 spots behind you shouts, then yelps. He's fallen, twisting his ankle on an uneven cobblestone. He tries to get up, but can't. You signal the chain to pause. A DOESN single quotes T. This is Rome, after all. There's always someone yelling over someone else. The line keeps moving. The next bucket smacks your knee and reflex takes over. You pass it forward. One guy down doesn't stop the fire. One ankle doesn't halt the flames. You spare a glance at your injured comrade. He's crawling to the curb, muttering curses that probably violate 2 Roman deities' terms of service. No one helps. They can't afford to. The chain is life. Your tunic is soaked now, not just with sweat, but water from the clumsy handoffs. Your sandals squish. You vaguely remember something your trainer once said: "If your feet stay dry, you won't die." It rhymed, but feels like a lied dot. As the minutes grind on, you notice something peculiar. Someone is watching. A kid, maybe 10 years old, peeks from behind a crumbling wall. His eyes are too calm for his age. He holds a bundle of sticks, not firewood, kindling, and he's not afraid. He vanishes into the shadows. That's the thing no one tells you about Roman fires. Sometimes they're not accidents. Arson isn't rare. It's a strategy. Landowners looking to evict tenants. Shopkeepers trying to cash in insurance from shady guilds. Even bored kids wanting to watch something glow. You tell the senior vigil about the boy. He nods, non-committal. Half they. Fires in Rome have small hands behind them, he mutters, then goes back to wrangling buckets. Eventually, the fire dies, or more accurately, runs out of fuel. The walls collapse inward, smothering what remains. You don't cheer. You just breathe, in, out, careful, shallow breaths. The air still stinks. You're told to help clean up. Drag debris, check for embers, chase off looters. A man tries to salvage charred amphorae from the wreckage. You wave him off. He waves back using one finger. The rest of the night passes like a fever dream. More alarms, more running. At one point you swear you see a burning chicken sprinting down the road. No one else acknowledges it. Maybe it was real. Maybe not. That's Rome for you. Somewhere near dawn, you find yourself back at a fountain. Not to fight a fire, just to wash. The water is cold, racing, slightly green. You splash your face. A fish glares at you from the basin. You apologize. It doesn't blink. You sit on the fountain's edge, legs trembling. Behind you, the city begins to stir. Bakers relight their ovens. Merchants set up their stalls. Children laugh and chase each other down alleyways that mere hours ago were glowing with danger. And yet, life rolls on. You look at your hands, blistered, burned. One nail bent sideways like a misshapen coin. You'll lose it by the end of the week. Your shift isn't even over. And still, you'd almost gotten used to it, because bucket after bucket, you're starting to understand something that doesn't make it into the marble inscriptions. Ancient. Roman firefighting isn't about saving the city. It's about delaying its inevitable collapse, one slosh at a time. The sun finally climbs over the terracotta rooftops, and with it a brittle sort of morning heat. Not hot enough to burn, but enough to warm the leftover soot clinging to your tunic and make it stick to your skin like regret. You haven't slept. The captain, well, technically, a tribunus vigilum is yelling again. You catch bits of it between your own yawns and the sound of someone retching up bad lentils nearby. Something about duty and dignity and how Rome depends on us. You wonder if Rome knows it's asking this much from a bunch of guys who haven't had a decent night's rest since the last equinox. But you're now officially a vigil, not just some bucket slinger. A real member of the Vigils Urbani, the Empire's Night Watch, Fire Brigade, and part-time moral police. It should feel heroic. It DOESN single quotes T. Your welcome ceremony had all the pomp of a bakery receipt. No armor, no parade, just a wooden tag like a nameplate had a disappointing cousin. On it, your number, your cohort, and your unit. You rub your thumb over it now. The edges are rough, like it was whittled during someone's lunch break. Still, that tag is your lifeline. You lose it, you're nobody. The vigils were formed after one particularly memorable Rome burned to a crisp incident under Augustus. Before that, the city relied on slaves or random citizens to fight fires. It went badly. So the emperor made the vigils a formal thing, 7 cohorts, each responsible for a different slice of the city, rotating shifts like the world's. Most exhausted sundial, historians still argue whether Augustus created the force for safety, or just to make himself look like the savior of Rome. Either way, here you are, thousands of years later, mentally thanking a long-dead emperor while peeling melted wax off your sleeve. Your barracks are tucked near the edge of the Esquiline Hill, a squat, stone structure that smells of smoke, wet wood, and something deeply foot-related. You share it with 23 other men and one cat that no one feeds, but everyone respects. The sleeping arrangements are what you'd expect: rows of straw mats, each thinner than your patience. You flop onto yours, which crunches ominously. Either the straw's moldy again, or someone hid a fig under your blanket. You almost drift off when someone yells, "Inspection," because, of course, you scramble to your feet, adjusting your belt and trying to make your face look more awake than undead. The inspector strides in like he owns the place, which, technically, he might. Bronze-plated armor, a crimson cloak, and the kind of mustache that says, "I file complaints for sport." He walks the line, eyeing everything. Your feet, your sponge stick. Your sandals, left one still squishy. He stops at the man next to you, Marcus, who famously uses soap only on Saturnalia, and sniffs. The inspector makes a noise like a disappointed goat and moves on. You pass. Barely after inspection, it's chore time. The romance of ancient firefighting doesn't include the sweeping, scrubbing, hauling, or the very real task of rat-checking the supply pantry. You lose the coin toss and get assigned to it. Rome has rats the size of wine jugs. Some say they're the reincarnated souls of corrupt senators. Others think they're just rats. Either way, they screech like banshees and have no fear of firemen. You open the pantry door slowly. 1, 2, 3, shove it open, and clatter your sponge stick inside like a war drum. Silence, then a scurry. You'll call it a win. Later, you gather with the others in the main courtyard. Someone's playing dice with pebbles. Someone else is carving tiny gladiators into a bench. You try to sit, but your legs still twitch from last night's ladder climb. An old timer, Lucius, leans over and mutters, "First week's the worst." After that, your brain just sort of melts into the job. He hands you a strip of salted fish. You eat it. It's disgusting. You thank him anyway. The captain gathers everyone. Tonight we train. Groans ripple through the group like smoke. Training means drills. Drills mean more buckets, more climbing, more yelling, and probably less sleep. You trudge to the training yard. a small square pit filled with ash and sand, surrounded by painted wooden walls pretending to be buildings. There's even a fake fire made from dyed cloth and red-painted logs. Theatrics. But useful? Today's lesson? Forming a fire break. That means destroying buildings before they catch fire, basically controlled demolition. Your heart sinks, you're handed a Delabra, a tool that looks like a pickaxe and a shovel had a confusing child. You take it and march toward the mock structure where someone's already shouting, "Breach wall." You swing. Wood cracks. Splinters fly. Your arms vibrate like a struck harp. You swing again. This goes on for hours. Midway through, you're soaked in sweat, sand in your eyes, and sawdust in your throat. Someone jokingly asks if this counts as a spa day. You try to laugh. You wheeze instead. Still, there's a weird satisfaction in it, breaking something to save everything else. You can't deny the primal thrill of smashing a wall with government approval. As dusk sets in, the captain claps his hands and yells, "That's it, you sopping sacks of barley. Eat, wash, and try not to collapse in the latrine." You file back toward the barracks, arm muscles trembling. There's a jug of tepid wine waiting on the table, and a loaf of bread someone forgot to salt. You chew it like it's punishment. No one talks much. Just clinks of cups, the creak of benches, and the occasional fart from someone who overdid it on lentils. Later, as you lie on your straw mat, staring at the cracked ceiling, you think, I'm one day in. Only a few hundred more to go. And the city is still standing. For now. Your second official day on duty begins not with a fire, but with a smell, something sour. Something goat-like. You sit up and immediately regret it. Your back cracks in 5 places, your shoulder feels like it's been replaced with a brick, and there's straw poking out of your ear. Welcome back to the barracks. You glance around and see that some of the others are already up rubbing their eyes, yawning wide enough to scare ghosts, pulling on their sandals like it's the last act of a tragedy. And then you see it. Your helmet. Or rather, the helmet, because Roman firefighting helmets weren't exactly the gleaming bronze domes you might imagine from a Hollywood reenactment. Oh no, this thing is made of thickened leather, hardened in oil and shaped like a puffy cap with ambitions. It's more padding than armor, and it smells like it's been through several generations of wet goat ownership. You strap it on anyway. It creaks ominously. The official uniform of the vigils is simple: tunic, belt, utility pouch, and helmet. Occasionally you'll get a cloak if it's raining or if someone dies and leaves theirs behind. Protective gear? That's more of a theory than a practice. Historians still argue whether the vigils were given proper fireproof clothing or just told to wear older, more flammable outfits since they'd be ruined anyway. Based on the evidence currently clinging to your thighs, you vote for the latter. After a rushed breakfast, a kind of barley mush with a generous helping of indifference, you line up for the daily equipment check. Your kit includes 1 bucket, leaks, probably 1 hook for pulling down unstable walls, 1 axe, blunt enough to be philosophical, 1 sponge stick you've stopped asking, 1 whistle, used mostly to scare rats or signal panic, and of course, your helmet. Remember, the trainer says, pacing like a man deeply tired of other people's incompetence. You don't need to win against the fire. You just need to slow it down until it gets bored. The day's assignment is a patrol around the Forum Rome's political and commercial heart. It's a hub of marble columns, statues, and shops selling everything from wine to scrolls to suspiciously dented armor. You and your team walk in a loose formation, keeping an eye out for signs of smoke, suspicious behavior, or unattended oil. Lamps. Fires love markets. They're like Tinder dates, lots of sparks and terrible decisions in tight quarters. You stop at a bathhouse where steam is pouring out in thick clouds. For a moment, you panic, thinking it's smoke. It's not. Just half-naked senators soaking their regrets. One of them waves at you with a meaty arm and shouts, "Fire boy, come scrub my back." You decline, politely. Continuing your patrol, you notice that most people barely acknowledge your presence. You're not a soldier. You're not a gladiator. You're just a vigil, which in Roman terms puts you somewhere between necessary and slightly in the way. Still, every now and then a shopkeeper offers you a fig or a crust of bread, not out of kindness, out of self-preservation. If your cohort likes you, they'll respond faster. If they don't, well, good luck with that fire. Your walk takes. You passed a small shrine to Vulcan, the god of fire and metalwork. A few burnt offerings smolder in the corner bones, incense, maybe some overcooked lentils. You light a stick of incense yourself and mutter a quick prayer. It's mostly for show. But maybe the god appreciates the gesture. You return to your outpost just as the midday heat reaches full oppressive glory. Your cloak clings to your back like a sweaty second skin. You sit under an archway, trying to shade your face when the captain plops down beside you. He nods. Still breathing? Mostly you croak. He chuckles. Good. That's ahead of schedule. He pulls out a small flask and offers you a sip. It's not wine. It's something harsher, maybe vinegar, maybe regret. You cough violently. He grins and leans back against the wall. You'll get used to it, he says, or you won't. Either way, Rome keeps burning. Later that afternoon, you're set on gear duty repairing buckets, sharpening tools, replacing broken ladder rungs. The workshop smells of pine resin and frustration. You work with a craftsman named Gaius, who insists on singing deeply inappropriate ballads while sanding down a hook. You know, he says between verses, these helmets used to be worse. Just cloth, like head towels. Then some genius dipped them in wax. Did it help? No, he says cheerfully, but they were shinier. There's a kind of camaraderie in this absurdity. Everyone here knows the job is a joke with the punchline on fire. But they still show up, still train, still risk their necks because, well, someone has to. Before the day ends, you're called to a minor alarm. A fishmonger's stall has gone up in smoke. More steam than flame, thankfully. The culprit? A broken oil lamp and a distracted apprentice trying to flirt with a passing fruit seller. You help put it out with wet blankets and vinegar rags. The fishmonger sobs over his smoked mackerel. You offer him a pat on the back. It does not help. The sun sets again over Rome. The rooftops glow golden, the air thick with dust and dinner smells. You make your way back to the barracks, legs heavy, arms sore. You strip off your gear, your leather helmet thuds onto the table, and stretch your spine until it sounds like gravel shifting. You eat, you wash, you lie down. Tomorrow the helmet goes back on, and you pray it doesn't melt. The next day begins with shouting. but not the panicked, smoke-in-the-air kind of shouting. No, this is structured, authoritative shouting. The kind that says you're late even if you're early. Training day again. You and your cohort assemble. In the yard just after sunrise, when the sky's still a dusty gray and the birds haven't quite committed to their morning songs, your tunic is still damp from yesterday. Your legs still feel like boiled noodles. Your heart sinks. Today, single quotes S lesson, tools of the trade. The instructor is a square-jawed man with arms, like cart wheels and a voice that could shatter amphory. He stands beside a wooden cart full of gear and gestures like a magician, revealing his bag of tricks. This, he says, pulling out a massive metal object, is the sipho. It looks like a battering ram married a wine press. Two large handles on either side, a nozzle at the front, and bronze fittings gleaming faintly in the morning light. You're informed that the sipho is the pride of the vigil's immobile water pump designed to draw water from fountains or cisterns and shoot it in a surprisingly pathetic stream toward a fire. You and 3 others are assigned to wheel it up and down the street. It weighs roughly the same as a small elephant, and none of the wheels are straight by the time you reach the practice zone. Your arms are trembling and your hands feel like they've been personally cursed by Vulcan. You set up the hose, really. More of a leather tube with dreams, and start cranking. A pitiful dribble sputters out. The instructor frowns. Faster. You crank faster. Now the dribble is a steady trickle, barely strong enough to move a feather. You imagine this heroic little stream battling a roaring wall of fire, and the image is so pathetic you almost laugh. Historians still debate how effective these early pumps really were. Some believe they were symbolic, used more to calm citizens than to douse actual flames. Others argue that when properly maintained, they could be surprisingly functional. Yours, however, clearly skipped breakfast. After the sipho demonstration, you move on to rope drills. You're handed a thick coil of rope and shown how to tie emergency rescue knots. These knots have elaborate names like the Blessed Loop of Castor or Mars Mercy Coil, but in practice, most of them seem to involve wrapping someone in circles until they either escape the fire or become an interpretive art piece. Your partner for the drill is Titus, a lanky vigil with the flexibility of a falling broom. You try to lower him from a second-story window using the knot you just learned, but something goes wrong. He swings sideways, smacks into the wall, and ends up dangling upside down, groaning like an injured lyre. You both agree to never speak of it again. Next up, the corvus. Not the bird. This is a grappling hook. It's meant for pulling down burning structures or collapsing weak walls to create fire breaks. You're each handed one and told to practice aiming. You toss yours and it immediately lodges into a training dummy's face. The instructor nods approvingly. Better the dummy than the senator next door. There's also the falx, a long-handled curved blade meant for sawing through debris. It looks dangerous. It is dangerous. You are not trusted with it for long. And then, your personal favorite, the siphonarius. Not a tool, but a roll-the-person who operates the sipho. It's basically the designated crank-turner. You're reminded that this is both an honor and a punishment. Depending on the day. After lunch, an inspiring bowl of overcooked beans and pickled hope, you're treated to a surprise lecture by a visiting expert. He's introduced as Appius, a retired vigil turned tool innovator. Appius proudly unveils his creation. A bronze-tipped fire rake dot, he describes it with great passion. It lets you rake the fire, aggressively. You stare at it, unsure, whether you're supposed to be impressed or alarmed. He continues, the fire doesn't expect a rake. It confuses it, makes it back down. There's a long pause. Titus whispers beside you, I once confused a fire by yelling at it in Greek. You? Nearly snort. Still, Appius gets a polite round of applause and a loaf of barley bread for his efforts. He bows. The rake gleams in the sun like an overly confident spoon. Later, you help store the tools back in the supply shed, where they sit like ancient relics waiting for the next disaster. You run your hand along the shaft of your sponge stick. It smells. Faintly of vinegar and bad decisions dot in the barracks that night. Conversation turns to superstitions. Never lean your hook against a wall, someone says. It invites collapse. Always spit on the first rope you throw, another adds. Lucius, the old-timer, nods sagely. And never say the word extinguished out loud. It tempts the gods. You raise an eyebrow. So what do we say? Instead? Gentled, he whispers. We say the fire has been gentled. You try it. The fire was gentled. Everyone nods. You've officially joined the weirdest, smokiest club in the Empire Dot as you drift off to sleep. Your mind hums with the weight of everything you've learned. Ropes, hooks, buckets, tools that barely work, and the realization that your gear is just fancy enough to slow you down, but not quite useful enough to save your life. But still, it's something. And in Rome, something is better than nothing. You wake to a knock at the door, not a polite one, either the kind that says get up or we're kicking it in. You fumble for your tunic, nearly tripping over your helmet as the door swings open. It's the shift captain. He looks displeased, which is basically his neutral expression. You Subura detail. Now, you groan inwardly. Subura again. If Rome were a loaf of bread, Subura would be the overbaked, cracked crust charred at the edges, unpredictable, and always flaking off. At the worst possible time. Fires love it there, and so do the people who start them. Today's mission isn't firefighting. It's prevention. Apparently, someone's been lighting small fires along the rooftops, just enough to panic the neighbors, not enough to trigger full-scale destruction. Petty arson, they're calling it, which, of course, still completely ruins your morning. You grab your gear hook, sponge, stick, rope, and follow the team into the twisted web of alleys. Subura's buildings lean in as if conspiring, casting deep shadows even in broad daylight. You can hear snippets of argument, laughter, and the occasional crash of pottery against stone. Children run past you barefoot, darting like sparrows, their faces streaked with ash and mischief. One girl stops, stares at your helmet, then says that won't help when it all burns. Charming. The rooftop patrol begins. You and two others hoist a ladder against the side of a 3-story insula and start climbing. The rooftops of Rome are less rooftops and more hopeful platforms. Wood planks, clay tiles, cloth shades tied with rope. It's like someone tried to build a city on top of another city, but only got halfway through. You walk carefully, arms out for balance, every step a gamble. The beams creak underfoot. Somewhere nearby, You hear the strum of a lyre and the clink of laundry being wrung out. Domestic life continues above the chaos dot, and then you find it. A patch of scorched tiles, still warm. You kneel, feeling the heat through your palm. Someone's been here recently. The captain nods toward a rope hanging over the ledge. You peer down. A narrow gap between buildings, just wide enough for a nimble figure to slip away. You scan the area. There on the next roof, a flutter of movement. A boy maybe 12, shirtless, feet black with soot ducking behind a chimney. You shout, but he's already gone, vanishing into the labyrinth. The captain growls. Arsonists. You descend, climbing back down the ladder with the grace of a dropped sack of bricks. Your legs are still shaking from balancing on roof beams that might or might not have passed their expiration date during Caligula's. Rain dot back on solid ground. You regroup. Petty fires are a constant issue in Rome. Sometimes it's children seeking excitement. Other times it's political statements or turf wars between rival shop owners. And occasionally, too often, it's for profit. You head to a local bathhouse where the owner claims he saw someone sneaking through the alley with a torch last night. He's wringing his hands like a man trying to squeeze the truth out of his palms. You ask questions. He provides answers, none of them particularly useful. Could have been a baker's boy or a fruit seller. They've got torches too, right? Maybe it was a drunk senator looking for his toga. Everyone's a suspect, and no one wants trouble. You chalk it up as a dead end and keep moving. Then the baker's wife pulls you aside. She leans in close and whispers. It's the Lupi. You blink. The wolves? She nods. A gang. Young ones. They set fires for fun or revenge, or to drive tenants out. You've heard of them. Street rumors say the Lupi are kids and teens mostly, run by an older ex-soldier with too much bitterness and too few teeth. They work for cheap, move fast, and love the smell of panic. Historians still argue whether these gangs were real organizations or just convenient scapegoats. But in the vigils, if smoke follows someone around long enough, you start assuming. They carry the matches. You report the tip to the captain. He nods, makes a note, then tells you to keep walking. Show your face. Let them know we're watching. So you do. You march slowly, deliberately, through the slums, making eye contact with every loiterer, every shopkeeper, every old woman gossiping over fruit. Your helmet is your badge. Your stare is your warning. Of course, no one admits anything. By the time you return to the station, it's nearly dusk. The heat has settled into the stone walls, and your skin itches from dried sweat and rooftop soot. You drink a cup of watered wine, lukewarm and vaguely vinegar-scented, and rub your feet. One of your toes is blistering. Again, that night, as you lie awake on your scratchy mat, you hear footsteps outside. Not panicked ones, deliberate. Slow. You rise, peek through the shutter, and see a figure down the alley. Small, barefoot, holding a bundle of sticks. Your heart tightens. Then, just as suddenly, the figure vanishes into the darkness, swallowed by the shadows of Rome. You settle back down, listening to the night sounds. Dogs barking, distant arguments, a lute plucking a sad tune. Somewhere out there, another fire is waiting to be lit. And sooner or later, you'll be called to chase it down. Your eyes open to darkness. Not the thick, mysterious kind. No, this is the kind of dark you get when you're indoors, half awake, and your brain hasn't yet decided whether it's day or night. The only thing you're sure of is the smell, that now familiar blend of mildew, old wool, vinegar, and exhausted men. Welcome to the barracks. Your shift doesn't start for another 2 hours, but sleep, like most luxuries in your life lately, is a bit of a myth. You roll over listening to the symphony of snoring around you, 20 men in varying stages of nasal collapse. Someone coughs. Someone mutters in their sleep. Somewhere, a rat gnaws at something it definitely shouldn't be gnawing. You try to drift back off. You fail. So you rise, quietly, carefully, slipping on your tunic like a monk preparing for prayer. You step outside into the cool stillness of pre-dawn. The courtyard is quiet. A soft wind carries the scent of damp stone and distant olive groves. A dog barks far off, but otherwise the city is for a few precious moments silent. This is your favorite time. The in-between. The city holding its breath. You head to the communal wash basin, splashing your face with water so cold it feels like punishment. Your reflection stares back at you in the ripples. Tired eyes, sun-browned skin, ash flecks still clinging to your eyebrows from yesterday. You sigh. Someone else joins your Titus, wrapped in his blanket like a toga. He nods, then dunks his whole head into the water. When he resurfaces, he looks around dramatically. Still roan, he says. Still not on fire yet. You nod solemnly. Give it time. You return inside as the others begin to stir, one by one. Lucius groans as he sits up, joints crackling like burning twigs. I dreamed I was sleeping in a bed. You raise an eyebrow. That's it? He sighs. That's the whole dream. The squad prepares for patrol, but today your assignment is different. Barracks duty, the captain says, pointing a soot-streaked finger at you. That means staying behind. Not glamorous, but not without responsibility. You help manage supplies, log equipment usage, and most importantly, coordinate the sleep schedules. Because yes, even Roman firefighters have to sleep. Barely. Historians still argue whether the vigils had formalized sleep shifts or just passed out whenever they could. Some records suggest rotating watches. Others hint that everyone just collapsed at once and hoped the gods were paying attention. In your cohort, it's more of a chaotic nap lottery. Titus is on first nap. He rolls into his mat like it owes him money and is snoring within seconds. You, meanwhile, sort through broken tools and damaged tunics. The laundry pile smells like despair. You discover that someone's been using the vinegar rags to clean their feet. You don't ask who. By midday, you've repaired 2 buckets, resharpened a hook, and scared off 3 pigeons trying to roost inside a helmet. Then you hear it. Not the scream of fire, but something else quieter. A knock. You open the barracks gate to find a courier holding a scroll. He hands it to you, mutters something about urgent, and scurries off. You break the seal and read. It's a warning. Someone's seen smoke drifting from a closed warehouse in the Velabrum district. Not flames, just a scent. A hint, but enough to be taken seriously. You rouse the sleepers quickly but gently. No one likes waking up, especially not to maybe smoke reports. You gear up and head out. The Velabrum is a low-lying, often flooded area near the Forum. It's packed with storage buildings, tanners, and traders. If there's a fire here, it'll spread fast and reek like a dozen bad decisions in a leather sack. You arrive and immediately catch it, that faint whiff. Not smoke. Something else. Charcoal? Grease? You knock. No answer. You break in. Inside. It's dim. Rows of amphorae, crates of wool, and stacks of leather strips. You fan the air with your tunic. Then you see it, a lamp left burning beneath a beam. Still lit dot, still hot, still surrounded by enough dry flax to send half the district skyward. You douse it with a wet rag, heart pounding. Was this deliberate? Titus asks, scanning the shadows. Or just stupid? You reply, historians will never know how many Roman fires began with a forgotten lamp, a lazy apprentice, or a bit of grease spilled near a flame. The truth is probably somewhere between human error and divine mischief. You finish inspecting the warehouse. No one inside, no sign of recent activity. But you log the incident, file the scroll, and leave behind a warning etched into the doorframe. Visited by the vigil's keep. Flames out. It's a passive-aggressive tradition, but sometimes it works. You return to the barracks as dusk settles. The men rotate some out to patrol, others curling into straw nests for sleep. Your turn. You stretch out, listening to the world through the thin walls. Somewhere in the city, someone is playing a reed flute. Someone else is arguing about debt. A dog barks again. The ceiling is cracked, its edges stained with smoke. But you stare at it anyway, letting your breathing slow, your body sink. And just before sleep claims you, you think, this city never sleeps. But somehow, you do dot eventually. It begins with shouting dot, of course it does. You're half asleep, tangled in your own cloak, when the door slams open and someone yells, "Fire! Subura!" Again? You groan. Someone else curses. You all scramble up like startled chickens, grabbing tunics, belts, hooks, helmets. No time to think. You're out the door before you've even remembered to put on both sandals. The air outside smells. Sharp, acrid smoke twisting through the alleys like an omen. You can already see the orange glow flickering against the clouds. It's not a small one this time. This is real. You sprint, tools clanking at your side, legs still stiff from sleep. The streets grow narrower the deeper into Subura you go. Clotheslines slap your face. Cracked pots crunch underfoot. And still, you run. When you reach the scene, the fire is already roaring dot. It's an upper floor blaze 4 stories, up on a wooden tenement that leans like it's whispering secrets to the building next door. The flames crawl across balconies, licking at awnings and timber like they've been starved for days. People are screaming. Pots clatter. Chickens squawk. Someone throws a bucket of water out the window, missing the fire completely and hitting a fellow vigil in the helmet. You barely have time to register anything before the orders come. Form the line. Get the ladder up. Roof access. You're chosen for rooftop duty. Again, you grab the rope bundle, your hook, and a short axe, and follow Titus toward a nearby insula. It's lower only 2 stories and stands next to the burning building. The idea is simple. Climb up, crawl across, and try to hack a fire break. The idea is always simple. The execution? Less so. The ladder creaks. Your hands slip on the rungs. Smoke stings your eyes, and ash sticks to your sweat-drenched skin like angry bees. But somehow you make it up. The roof is unstable. You test each step, heart hammering in your chest. Below you, people are pouring out of buildings, some with bundles, some barefoot. One man is dragging an entire amphora of wine and shouting, "This is my life's work." You crawl to the edge. The fire is a wall now alive, breathing, crackling. You can feel its heat in your teeth. You swing the axe, the timber groans, you hack again, splinters fly. Below, a team is spraying water upward in long arcs, but the wind carries most of it away. Someone yells for more buckets. Someone else yells, "Get off the roof." You pretend not to hear. You pull off a section of roofing, hoping to disrupt the spread. It works barely. The flames hesitate, stumble, lick upward like angry tongues, and then slowly start to curl back. For a moment, you think you've won. Then a scream. You turn. Across the alley on another roof, a young man is trapped, his exit cut off by fire. He's waving frantically, smoke curling around him like a snake. You recognize him, one of the messengers, fast on his feet. Not fast enough today. Titus swears. Beside you. We have to get him. There's no time to argue. You secure your rope. Check the knots. Yes, the blessed loop of castor, and swing it toward a protruding beam on his side. First try. Miss. Second try. Clang. Third try. It catches. Pull it tight, praying it holds. Then crawl across like a poorly trained circus performer. Every part of you screams to turn back, but you don't. The heat is worse here. You can't see clearly. Your eyes water. You reach him just as the edge of the roof starts to crumble. He grabs you like a lifeline. You yell at him to move, crawl. Don't look down. And somehow, shaking and coughing, he does, back across the rope. Back to safety. He collapses beside you, gasping thanks. You nod, too hoarse to speak. By the time you're off the roof, the fire has been gentled, the word Lucius prefers. 3 buildings destroyed. 1 goat dead. A tavern saved. Barely. You sit on the curb again, same as always, your legs dangling. Someone passes a flask. You take a sip. It tastes like fire and figs. Around you, the city exhales. Neighbors hug. Children cry. A priest thanks Vulcan with a loaf of barley bread and a muttered prayer. A woman approaches, maybe 40, covered in soot. She hands you a tiny clay charm shaped like a dog. For protection, she says. You blink. From fires? No, from gods who send them. You accept it, holding it tight in your fist. Historians still argue whether ancient Rome ever truly had effective fire prevention, or if it just learned to rebuild quickly. Looking at the charred ruins behind you, you lean toward the ladder. You return to the barracks as the sky starts to pale. The others file in one by one, quiet, scorched, dragging. No one speaks. Someone hums a lullaby, off-key but soft. You lie on your mat, the clay dog tucked beneath your tunic, and stare up at the smoke-streaked ceiling. For once, you're too tired to dream, and that's probably for the best. Morning doesn't so much arrive as it slouches in, like a hungover senator avoiding eye contact. You wake to find your muscles protesting with every twitch. Your neck feels like it's aged 20 years overnight. Someone's whistling a funeral march nearby, not out of grief, just habit. You sit up and immediately wish you hadn't. Special assignment today. the captain announces far too cheerily for a man who smells like old bronze and wet sandals. The Emperor wants to show off. Oh, that kind of assignment. You and a dozen others are chosen to represent the vigils in an imperial parade, which means brace yourself clean uniforms, polished boots, shiny helmets, and pretending not to be exhausted. You sigh. Parades in Rome are like theater productions, but with worse snacks. They're less about celebrating real achievements and more about looking like the empire is humming along beautifully, even if half the city caught fire last week and the other half is still smoldering. You polish your gear until your reflection winces back at you. The leather helmet still smells of goat, despite your best efforts. Your tunic is stiff with ash and vinegar, but someone hands you a red sash to cover the worst stains. Smile if you can, says Lucius, adjusting his belt. Or at least don't scowl like you've been slapped by Jupiter. You gather outside the Praetorian barracks, where soldiers in gleaming armor line up with perfect posture and expressions carved from marble. Then there's your squad, half awake, sunburned, smelling of vinegar-soaked rope and bad sleep. You're positioned right behind a detachment of imperial musicians, flute players, and horn blowers who seem entirely too proud of ability to march and sing while wearing absurdly feathered helmets. The parade begins with trumpets. You march down the main road, past cheering citizens, past garland-draped statues and bored senators sipping watered wine under embroidered awnings. Every few feet, someone tosses flower petals. They stick to your sweaty face like pink confetti of regret. You pass by a large wooden stage, where the Emperor himself sits beneath a silk canopy, fanning himself with a gilded palm leaf. He raises a hand barely, and the crowd erupts in cheers. You raise your sponge stick. He nods. There it is, the highlight of your month. The Emperor acknowledging your existence, or perhaps just adjusting his sleeve. Hard to say. Still, your captain looks proud. Good posture. He hisses at you as you nearly trip over your own bucket. The parade winds its way through the forum, where market stalls have been cleared away to make room for stage spectacles. One of them catches your eye, a mock firefighting display. 6 hired actors, none of them vigils, dramatically toss water onto painted flames, while shouting heroic phrases like, "We'll save the city," and "Fear not, citizens." You and the others exchange looks. They're doing it wrong, Titus mutters. You never throw water upward like that. You try not to laugh, but then one of the actors trips over his own bucket, and you snort. So loudly a child in the crowd startles. Still, the crowd loves it. People want spectacle, not soot. A performance, not reality. The truth, where you're pulling flaming timber off a collapsed roof at midnight while praying your rope doesn't snap, isn't stage-friendly. Historians still debate whether these displays actually improved public trust in the vigils or just made them look like clowns in wet tunics. You'd argue the latter, but the wine-soaked applause tells a different story. After hours of marching, smiling, and not collapsing, you're finally dismissed. You drag yourself back to the station, remove your sash, and flop onto the nearest bench. Someone hands you a lukewarm fig. You chew it like it personally offended you. Later, the captain gathers everyone for a debrief. He seems oddly chipper. "Good job today," he says. No one fainted. No one cursed near the Emperor. And he holds up a scroll. We've been gifted a new water siphon. There's a beat of silence. Then scattered applause. A new siphon means fewer hours struggling with that cursed crank from the last century, or at least slightly fewer. Also, the captain adds, we'll be taking shifts guarding the warehouse district this week. Someone's been trying to light things again. Groans ripple through the room like bad stew. You rub your temples. Rome never stops burning. That night, after scraping the last of your dinner from a bowl that's seen better centuries, you retreat to the roof. It's become your habit lately. From up here, the city stretches endlessly terracotta rooftops, flickering oil lamps, the occasional shout or bark. The breeze carries the scent of olives, smoke, and distant bread, and for a brief moment, you almost understand the spectacle. The pageantry, the theater of pretending everything is fine, because up here, with the city lit like a constellation of flickering stars, it almost feels true. You climb back down, stretch out on your mat, and let the ache in your shoulders sink you deeper into the straw. Tomorrow, it all starts again, with or without flower petals. You're halfway through a perfectly good nap face, mashed into your tunic, dreams just starting to drift into something involving olives and very tiny horses, when the bell clangs. Not the fire bell. The other bell. Investigation duty. You groan so hard your straw mat rustles. Lucius throws an arm over his face and mutters something about quitting. For the 10th time this week, you're rousted, robed, and out the door with a notched stylus and your official slate, the wooden tablet, with a layer of wax where you'll record your findings. You're not quite a detective, not quite a clerk, just tired. Very, very tired. The fire was small this time. A bakery in the Celian Hill district ground floor blaze, quickly gentled. No injuries. But the captain says something feels off. So naturally you get to figure out if someone lit it on purpose. The bakery is a sad sight. Blackened walls, half-burned baskets, and a smell of roasted flour and regret hanging in the air. The front awning sags like it's given up on life. You and Titus step over broken pottery and burnt loaves. Wasn't this place famous for honey cakes? He says, sniffing hopefully. Not anymore, you reply. The baker stands outside, arms crossed, eyes red. His wife keeps wringing her hands. There's a little girl clinging to her skirt, staring at you like she knows you're not going to fix anything. You begin the questions. When did they last see the oven lit? Were any lamps left burning? Did they have enemies, competitors? The baker shrugs at most of it, then finally mutters, he said I owed him. You pause. Who? He gestures vaguely toward the alley. The man who used to watch over the street. Said if I paid late again, something would happen. Protection racket. Classic. Titus scribbles notes. You frown at the soot-blackened walls. There's something odd about the fire pattern, though. And fast, not from the oven. More like a pile of rags soaked in. Something. You kneel and scrape the edge of the wall with your stylus. It smells faintly of fish oil. Unusual for a bakery. Someone wanted this place to burn. You step outside and walk the alley. It's narrow, damp, and full of secrets. Rats scurry. Doors slam as you pass. On one wall, a smear of charcoal marks the stone like a lazy arrow. You follow. A few meters in, you find a smashed jar and a torn sandal strap. The oil residue still glistens faintly in the light. Someone left in a hurry. You report back. The baker thanks you in that hollow way people do when they know nothing will change. The fire's out, but the damage is done. He'll rebuild. Or he won't. Either way, it's out of your hands. You return to the barracks and hand in your tablet. The clerk squints at your notes and clicks his tongue like a disappointed grandmother. I wish we had time to look into these properly, he mutters. But we'll be lucky just to copy them before the next one starts. You know he's right. Historians still argue whether the vigils truly enforced justice or simply kept records until the next fire washed the slate clean. Either way, Rome's memory is as fickle as its flames. Later that evening, your cohort gets assigned to night patrol in the Trans-Tiberim district across the river, where things are quieter, but not necessarily safer. The streets are darker here, fewer lamps, more shadows. You carry torches, but the light only seems to make the darkness more aware of itself. At one corner, you spot a familiar face. A boy you think the same one from Subura, the one with kindling in his hands. He vanishes again, ducking into a whine. Shop before you can say anything. You report it. The captain just shrugs. Unless he's holding fire, we can't do much. That's the frustrating truth of it all. You're not just fighting flames. You're fighting fear, poverty, desperation. The kindling isn't just wood. It's a cry for control in a city that ignores you until you burn. On the way back, Titus pulls you aside. You ever think, he says, voice low, that sometimes people set fires just to feel noticed? You nod. Or to be remembered. The city looms around you, massive, alive, hungry. Every alley has a story. Every scorch mark a secret. You return to the barracks just before dawn. The sky is a dull slate, smeared with the first hints of rose and ash. You eat a stale crust of bread. Someone stole the last of the wine. The water tastes metallic. No one complains. You lie down, not to sleep, but just to stop standing. The mat is thin. The straw pokes your shoulder. But it's yours, and for a few precious hours you are still. Tomorrow you'll chase smoke again. But tonight you rest among the embers. You're halfway through sweeping out the courtyard, task assigned to you on account of having the legs for it, when you hear the trumpet, not the kind used for parades or market announcements. No, this one is lower, heavier, a slow, deliberate blap that says, something dramatic is about to happen, and you're not going to like it. You drop the broom. Within minutes, your fully geared helmet strapped, hook and rope at your side, sponge stick slung over your back, like the world's most disappointing weapon. But it's not a fire, it's a punishment. Today, you're part of the escort team for Apona Kule. The name alone gives you chills. You've only heard of it in whispers. A rare sentence for arsonists who commit extreme offenses, burning temples, imperial buildings, or sacred sites. The punishment is as strange as it is terrifying. The criminal is sewn into a sack with several live animals and then thrown into a river. You asked once what the animals were. The answer, a dog, a monkey, a snake, and a rooster. You assumed it was a joke. It was not. The condemned man is already bound and kneeling at the square when you arrive. He's thin. His tunic is charred at the edges. His eyes are wide, but oddly calm. You wonder what he's thinking, if he regrets it, if he even Believes he'll die. The crowd is already forming. People love a good execution, especially a weird one. Vendors are selling honeyed nuts and warm bread, as if this were a festival. Children weave between sandals. Somewhere, a street poet is performing a dramatic ballad about betrayal and ash. And there it is, the sack. Heavy, coarse, damp. The animals are already inside, snarling and thrashing. A snake's tail flicks out from a gap and quickly retreats. The smell is indescribable, like vinegar, damp fur, and divine wrath all boiled together. You're not responsible for the actual sewing. That job falls to a grim-faced veteran with hands like chisels, but you are tasked with carrying the sack once it's sealed. Lucky you. As the ritual begins, a priest steps forward. He reads from a scroll in a voice so theatrical it would make an actor blush. Something about balance, justice, cleansing flame. You stop listening after a while. The condemned man is lowered into the sack. The moment the flap is stitched closed, everything changes. The sack moves. You and two others grab the sides and hoist it onto a cart. The animals writhe. The man screams, then chokes, then goes silent. You're not allowed to speak during the escort. So you walk, silent, through streets where people cheer, jeer, or avert their gaze. You pass the forum, the temples, the quiet alleyways where lesser crimes fester. The sack bumps and shifts. You try not to flinch every time it twitches. The river smells stronger than usual today. Algae, silt, decay. The barge is waiting. You load the sack aboard and watch as it's rolled toward the center of the vessel. Then, with a splash and a dull thud, it's gone. No ceremony, no last rites. Just the sound of water folding over a secret. Historians still argue whether Pona Cully was reserved solely for arsonists, or if it was also used for parricides and other crimes against nature. Some even doubt whether it happened often, or if its vivid horror was mainly used as a deterrent. You've now seen it. Once is enough. The walk back is longer than it should be. Not because of the distance, but because no one really wants to talk. Even Lucius is quiet. Back at the station, you clean the gear. Not because it's dirty, but because it gives your hands something to do. Then the captain appears. He drops a small bag of coins on the table. Compensation, he says, for the extra duty. You blink. That's rare. You split it among the team, each person pocketing a few denarii and pretending it makes it worth it. Later that night, after a sparse dinner and too many long silences, you step outside. The air is thick, humid, electric. Rome feels like it's holding its breath. You walk to the riverbank just for a moment, just to see. The water is calm now, still, as if nothing happened. You stare at the ripples until your eyes ache. Someone behind you lights a torch. You don't turn around. Maybe it's a patrol. Maybe it's a warning. You return to the barracks. Without a word, the mat is rough beneath you. Your muscles ache, your mind spins, and you wonder, was the man guilty? Did he mean to burn what he burned? Or was he just another ember caught in the wrong wind? The city sleeps, but tonight you don't. When the call comes, it's short and brutal. Warehouse blaze. Emporium District. Move. You don't even have time to think. Just gear up, sling your bucket over one shoulder, axe at your hip, sponge stick clutched like a lucky charm. Your sandals slap weightly against the stone. as you jog after the others. Emporium. The word alone twists something in your gut. This isn't some thatched roof tenement in Subura. It's the heart of Rome's storage grid: grain, wine, oil, linens, spices. Everything the empire runs on, stacked high in wooden racks that reach for the heavens. And now it's burning. When you arrive, it's already chaos. 3 structures are glowing like hearths, flames pouring from their upper floors in long orange tongues. Smoke billows out in thick black plumes, swallowing the street, the sky, and most of your hope. The air is oily, sticky hot enough to bite. You cough hard as you enter the fray. Someone hands you a soaked cloth. You tie it over your mouth and nose. Not that it helps. Orders are flying. The pump team's already deployed the sifo, but the pressure's weak. The water arcs uselessly over the lower beams. Most of it hits a nearby cart, which immediately begins to steam. You're waved toward the east side of the fire, where one warehouse wall has begun to buckle. You and Titus are assigned to break it before it collapses on its own and takes half the street with it. You ready your tools. Axe in hand, rope secured. On 3, someone yells. You swing, wood splinters, you swing again. The wall groans low, drawn out like an old man in pain. Sparks rain down from above as bits of burning rafter drift through the air. You duck just in time. A shout. Clear, everyone clear. The wall gives. You and Titus dive back as it collapses with a crash that seems to shake the stones beneath your feet. Dust and smoke rush outward like a storm, blinding, choking, swallowing the shouts and screams that follow. You cough. Again. You can't stop. A young vigil stumbles past, clutching his arm. Burned. Badly. He sinks down at the edge of the road, face white as marble. Lucius kneels beside him, muttering something you can't hear. You glance up and for a moment, through the haze, you see the scale of it. Not just one warehouse. 5, maybe more. The fire is moving faster than you've ever seen, jumping roofs, consuming wood, sucking in air like a beast. You sprint to the line of buckets and jump, and pass. You barely feel your hands anymore. Your wrists are red and raw. Every muscle trembles with exhaustion, and still the fire roars. Someone screams. You turn, see a man collapse in the smoke. Not a vigil. A worker, maybe, trying to save his wares. You run to him, lift him by the arm, and drag him toward a fountain. The steam is unbearable. Your vision swims. You get him out. Collapse beside him. Gasp. A shadow falls across you. It's the captain. He looks like he's aged a decade in an hour. Get up, he says. Not harsh. Not even urgent. Just tired. So you get up. The rest of the night is a blur. You carry buckets until your hands are claws. You tie ropes around beams and pull down more walls. You pray to Vulcan, to Jupiter, to any god who might be awake. Historians still debate how large. The Emporium fires could get, whether the legendary ones that burned for days were exaggerations or truth. But tonight you believe it. You see it. You smell it in every thread of your tunic. By morning, the fires are dying. Not out, just tired. Blackened ruins rise from the smoke like ancient bones. The warehouses are gone. Ash lies ankle deep. Amphorae melted. Scrolls reduced to crisp curls of charcoal. You sit down, no fanfare, no cheering, just the slow realization that you're alive. Barely. Someone hands you water. You drink too fast, choke, cough, then laugh. It's a broken, hollow sound, but it's yours. Titus slumps beside you. We stopped it, he says. Mostly. He nods. You. Both fall silent. A merchant walks by, surveying the wreckage of what was once his livelihood. He doesn't curse, doesn't cry, just nods, as if to say this is Rome. Later, back at the station, you remove your gear slowly, one buckle at a time. Your fingers are blistered. Your shirt clings to your back in one big sheet of crusted sweat and smoke. You find soot in your ears, your nose, your teeth. You wash. You eat. You lie down. And then you dream, not of fire, but of silence, the kind you only get after something immense has finally run out of things to destroy. It starts as a rumor. You're sitting on the barracks step, nursing a cup of weak barley water, when Lucius lowers his voice and mutters, "They're calling us to the Aventine." But there's no fire. You frown. "No fire?" He shrugs. "Not yet." Within the hour, it's confirmed that your cohort is being deployed not to fight a blaze, but to break up a street brawl that someone mistook for a fire. And now, you get to see the other side of the vigil's job, because yes, you're firefighters, but you're also peacekeepers. And sometimes when things get really ugly, you're Rome's lowest budget riot squad. You arrive on the Aventine Hill, expecting smoke. Instead, you find broken pottery, angry shouting, and the unmistakable sound of fists meeting faces. A small marketplace has turned into a battleground. Merchants screaming at each other, bystanders caught in the middle, and one man trying to hit someone with a fish. You spot a toppled brazier nearby. Smoke curls lazily from it, probably what triggered the false alarm. But no fire. Just rage. You tighten your grip on your sponge stick. The captain surveys the chaos and mutters, "Try not to kill anyone, unless they really deserve it." You wade in. It's less like firefighting and more like storm chasing. People duck and scatter at your approach, but others square up angry, defiant, already in too deep to back down. One man swings a stool at Titus. It breaks across his helmet. Titus grunts and responds by shoving the guy into a cart of cabbage. You get jostled, tripped, elbowed. Your sponge stick proves about as effective as a wet noodle. Still, you wave it around with enough authority to clear a path. "Stop!" You yell. No one listens. Rome needs peace. A tomato hits your shoulder. You spot the root of the fight, two families arguing over the placement of market stalls. A cartwheel crushed someone's olives. Voices were raised. Then fists. Now, you help separate them, one by one. Cool heads prevail eventually. Or maybe they just tire out. You don't really care. You're sweaty. You're sore. And you're not getting paid extra once the fight fizzles. The cleanup begins. You help right the overturned brazier, restack broken fruit baskets, and sweep the road with a borrowed broom. A young boy watches you work with wide eyes and says, "I thought firefighters just fought fire." You smile. That would be too easy. Back at the barracks, you report the incident. The scribe scribbles your description onto a wax tablet, like it's just another boring entry in a long, pointless list. Julius 4, brawl, no flames. Fish used as weapon. No one will remember it by tomorrow, but you'll feel it in your back for a week. Later, the mood softens. Someone breaks out a liar. Someone else brews a pot of Posca sour wine and water, spiked with herbs and vinegar. The barracks starts to feel almost cozy in a mildly repulsive way. Titus reenacts the cabbage cart moment to roaring laughter. Even Lucius chuckles, which is rare and slightly unsettling. And then the captain shares a story about a time he was called to stop a fire, only to find a man roasting chestnuts and 50 neighbors accusing him of arson. Ended up confiscating his chestnuts. The captain says, "Just to be sure, did you eat them?" He pauses. "Yes." Historians still debate how much of the vigil's time was spent handling non-fire emergencies, disputes, thefts, drunken disturbances. But if you asked any firefighter in Rome, they'd tell you, most fires don't burn buildings, they burn tempers, reputation, trust. You lie down early that night, bone weary from a day that involved more shouting than shoveling. The barracks quiets slowly. One by one, your brothers drift off, some mumbling in their sleep, others already snoring like chains being dragged across the floor. You roll onto your side and stare at the flickering oil lamp above the door. Tomorrow might be flames, or fists, or fish. You'll be ready either way. Tonight, your assignment is different. Not a fire, not a riot. Something stranger. The captain calls you over with a flick of his wrist and mutters, "Inspection duty. Sewers." You stare at him. He stares back. You try to think of a reply that doesn't sound like begging. Failing that, you simply nod. Titus groans beside you. "Why us?" "Because the last group still hasn't washed off the smell," says Lucius, already pinching his nose. A few of the closely Rome's underground sewers and drainage tunnels have been reported as hot, which is an official way of saying people saw smoke down there and no one knows why. So off you go. Torch in one hand, sponge stick in the other, a length of rope around your waist, and a growing sense that tonight will not end with warm bread and a foot massage. You descend through a narrow stone opening behind the Temple of Fortuna. The air hits you instantly, damp, stagnant, laced with the scent of rotten vegetables, wet brick, and something vaguely mythological. Your sandals slosh through ankle-deep filth as you step into the first chamber. The ceiling's low, the walls slime-slick. Every echo sounds like it has teeth. Even the torchlight seems nervous, casting weird, trembling shadows on the curved stone like it's trying to leave. Titus walks ahead, muttering to himself. Lucius brings up the rear, swinging his rope like he might use it to lasso a ghost. After the first turn, you see them. Markings on the wall, burnt soot smears, symbols, words carved in what looks like bone dust and ash. Looks like someone's been camping down here, you say. Or hiding. The sewers are a forgotten world. Yes, they carry water and waste, but they also carry secrets. Runaways, smugglers, and sometimes people who believe they can summon spirits if they burn the right incense in the right hole beneath the right temple. You find a hollow carved into the stone, lined with melted candles, bits of singed cloth, and dried herbs. The walls are warm, recently warm. You touch one and hiss. Definitely heat. No visible flames, but someone has been down here lighting fires. Ritual fires. Vulcan. Cult? Titus asks. Maybe, Lucius mutters. or just bored philosophers with terrible boundaries. Historians still argue whether Rome's undercity was home to real religious cults or just eccentric citizens with too much wine and too little daylight. But standing here, ankle-deep in centuries of bad decisions, you're inclined to believe either is possible. You press onward, deeper into the tunnels. Eventually, the passages open into a larger chamber, an ancient cistern now half collapsed. The air here is thicker, muggier. The torchlight reflects off a black pool of stagnant water in the center. And then you hear it. A hiss. Sharp, short, like a steam vent or a whisper too close to your ear. Everyone freezes. Then a splash. You raise your torch. Nothing. Just water, shadows, and the faint sound of something brushing against stone. You inch forward. At the edge of the cistern, you spot fresh footprints in the grime bare feet, small, leading toward a dark exit tunnel. You follow them for 20 paces, but then they vanish. Literally vanish. No more marks. Just dry stone and that awful silence. You decide very firmly that this is enough sewer for one evening. You retreat, retracing your steps, heart hammering harder with every echo. You glance back once, and for a flicker of a moment, you swear you see a face in the shadows. Or maybe not. You climb back into the world of air, and stars like a man escaping the underworld. Back at the station, the others don't ask for details. Sewer duty stories are rarely pleasant and never believable. You jot down what you saw carefully, skipping anything that might sound too odd. Officially, hot tunnel segment, likely candle-based activity, unknown party, recommend future patrol. Unofficially, let someone else go next time. You take a long, shivering wash with vinegar water and scrub your feet until they feel like someone else's. Dinner is quiet that night. Everyone chews slowly. Even Lucius is too tired to complain about the lentil stew. You lie in your mat and close your eyes, but the darkness feels different now, thicker. You dream of tunnels. Of strange warmth, of whispers behind stone. When you wake sometime before dawn, the oil lamp by the door is still burning, and someone has drawn a small mark on the wall. A simple burnt. Just like the one in the sewer. You don't speak. You just blow out the lamp and wait for morning. You wake to the sound of footsteps, fast, loud, panicked. Not again. By now, you don't even ask. You just reach for your helmet, snatch up your sponge stick, and yank your half-dry tunic over your head. The entire barracks is moving. The captain's voice booms through the courtyard. Warehouse near the Porta Trigemina. Large, spreading fast. This one's bad. You exchange a look with Titus. Neither of you speaks. What's there to say? The glow is already visible over the rooftops, pulsing orange, angry. Your legs carry you even before your brain catches up. The streets are full of noise, shouts, running feet, the clatter of carts being dragged clear. You pass frightened oxen, crying children, a woman trying to shield her bread stall with a wet sheet. Rome in chaos. Again. When you reach the site, your breath catches. It's huge. The fire has leaped from building to building, devouring everything. Flames dance 3 stories high. Beams fall like matchsticks. You can feel the heat even from the far side of the square. The sipho is already in place, but the water pressure is miserable. Someone's trying to reroute it through a second line, but the hose is leaking like a senator's secrets. You're waved forward. No hesitation now. This time you know what to do. You sprint to the side of a collapsing building and join the effort to establish a fire break. Axes swing, walls crack. Every muscle in your back begs for mercy, but your body doesn't listen. You climb a scaffold with a hook and rope, because a trapped boy is screaming from the top floor of a storage loft. You reach him, lift him over your shoulder, and descend, while half the ladder creaks like it's considering retirement. You make it down just barely below. A group of vigils is pouring water onto an adjacent roof to keep the flames from jumping. The tiles hiss. Steam rises in choking clouds. You help where you can. Tie ropes. Shout warnings. Pull debris from the path of a makeshift bucket line. Hours pass, or maybe just one. Time doesn't work properly inside a fire. Then someone yells. It's breaking north wall. You turn in time to see a timber beam snap, sending a cascade of glowing embers through the air like a flock of angry fireflies. Lucius is nearest. He dives to the side, but not fast enough. The beam catches him across the legs. You rush to him. He's groaning. Not unconscious, but hurt. Badly. You and two others lift the beam, drag him clear. His hands grip yours so tightly it hurts. Did we save it? He rasps. You look up. Half the warehouse is rubble. But the fire is dying. Contained, charred, not destroyed. Mostly, you say. He chuckles. Good enough. You carry him back, your arms slung around his shoulder, as if you're helping a drunk home from a tavern. Except the blood on your hands is real. Historians still argue whether the vigils truly made a difference or if their presence was just symbolic, a bandage over a wound that never closed. But tonight, as you sit beside a smoldering ruin with aching lungs and a pulsing burn across your shoulder, you know this much. You made a difference here. No statues will go up in your name. No poets will sing of the man with the soot-stained tunic and the burnt leather helmet. But somewhere, a child is still alive. A mother has her bakery. And Rome, smoke-blackened and stubborn, is still standing as the sky lightens from charcoal to lavender. You return to the barracks. The walk feels longer than usual. The city around you is quiet again. Just a faint clatter of pottery, the clink of armor, the scratch of a broom sweeping away yesterday's ash. Back inside, the barracks is still. Most of your cohort is already sleeping, sprawled like wreckage across the mats. Lucius is snoring softly beside a half-melted oil lamp. His leg is bound, his foot bare, but he's alive. You wash, slowly, each movement deliberate, even reverent. The grime on your skin feels like it belongs to someone else now. Someone who ran into fire and came back changed. You eat a crust of barley bread, sip tepid wine, then lie down, not from exhaustion, though it's there, but from completion. This time you did your job. All of it. The mat creaks under you. A gentle breeze pushes through the window. Somewhere someone is already shouting about the price of garum, and another fire might be just one oil lamp away. But tonight you sleep. And now, as you lie there in the quiet calm, the fire finally gone, your eyes begin to close. The world softens around the edges. The barracks grows still. The straw mat beneath you feels like a feather bed after the night you've had. Your muscles, though sore and weary, begin to release their tension. Your arms rest easily at your sides. Your legs stretch, heavy and safe, dot the soft crackle of distant. Embers fades into the background, like a whisper from a fading dream. You've done your part. You've stood in the face of fire and smoke and chaos. You've climbed rooftops. You've pulled down walls. You've lifted others when they could no longer stand. And now, finally, it's time to let the city sleep. The lamps have gone dark. The streets are quiet. Even the gods, restless and fiery, seem content for now. Breathe in. Let the air fill you. Breathe out. Let it carry the smoke and the heat and the weight of the night far, far away. Here in the cool dark, surrounded by the quiet breath of your fellow vigils, you are safe. The fire is out. The city still stands, and you can rest. Let the night take you. Let your thoughts grow dim. Let sleep find you in the cradle of silence. Dot and know in your bones that for all its noise and fury, Rome is quiet now, and so are you. Sweet dreams.